What's going on, guys? So last night we had our first local tournament for Transformers in Columbia, South Carolina at Firefly Toys and Games. I came in second. I just wanted to do like a quick deck tech and like tournament report. We only played 3 rounds of Swiss. Super great event. Everybody who came out was awesome. Played against like a lot of variation. So as you can see, I was playing Nemesis, Flamewar, Aimless. This deck is super good. It's super fun. Just want to go through some like the card choices and stuff. So obviously, if you're not in the know yet, so the name of the game here is Tough. Aimless has 3 Tough printed. Flamewar gives another Tough to everybody. And basically, you just want Nemesis Prime to stay alive as long as possible to collect as many cards under him. So he's swinging for like 13, 16, 19 consistently. It's kind of gross. And when you equip Aimless, you can flip Flamewar to give your characters bold 1 to make sure you always proc, which I'll kind of get into that in a second when I go into like the battle reports or whatever they call them in this game. So let's look at the list. So first up, let's look at our pump spells. So I'm running 8 pumps. I'm running 3 heavy-handeds because Nemesis is bigger than most things. 3 bigger they are because these 2 guys need as much help getting damage in as possible, and 2 leaps. I just think Leap is the choice over like Steady Shot just because it does the most and it's got a blue pip. I play 0 orange pips because I believe that every orange pip you play, Tough gets worse. And the name of this deck is just the wall. You wanna be a wall, you wanna be as tough as humanly possible. So moving over here, these are our utilities. So I played 3 security consoles. So the main reason I like this card, well, it's a white pip, so you know it's cool. Is that it lets you draw a card, which goes to your deck faster for Nemesis, as well as letting you set your top deck if you need to get like a handheld blaster out of the way or something. So next, 2 urban camos. I was running 3, but when I added Bravery, I just realized there wasn't room. There was never a situation where I needed 3. So Bravery, this card is just ridiculous in this deck. I really did not like this card until Aimless. Bravery on Aimless with some form of armor is just really difficult for a lot of decks to get through. So for the most part, he just sits there and soaks everything. Looking at the armors, so I'm playing 3 reinforced platings and 3 extra paddings. Extra padding is my favorite armor in the game now. Having actually spent a lot of time with it, I've played a ton of games with this deck. Extra padding is so flexible. You can dump it all on Nemesis to give him tough 3. You can put 1 on all of your teammates. I wouldn't recommend that route, but you can. You can say, for example, if you already have a reinforced plating on Nemesis, you could say put 2 on Aimless, 1 on Flamewar. You know, you can do that all in the same turn because they just allow you to dump. It's they're fantastic. I just love that card. Plus, you can fetch it. It's got a blue pit. It's got everything I want in a good card. So moving on. So some of the actions we were playing. 3 Battlefield Report. Like I said, it draws you cards, lets you set your top deck, goes through your deck faster for Nemesis because that's what we're trying to do. Swap missions. This is probably one of those cards that's like, it felt kind of weird because there was very few situations where Nemesis was not attacking last. But sometimes if you're staring down an RC and turn 1 you just need to kill it, so you're going to flip Nemesis and swing straight into RC. So sometimes swap missions is really useful in that situation for if you need to get that turn 1 pick. But I usually end up boarding it out against most decks. But it's really good to have if you have those situations. Vaporize, obviously, it does vaporize things. It gets rid of troublesome upgrades, and it's just great. I wish I could run more, but I just don't have room. So looking at my double pips, running 3 handheld, 3 sec check, and 1 EMP wave. So my choice on EMP wave is probably the only one that needs explaining. So EMP wave, the only reason I'm playing this over like Universal Network Access or something like that is that there are situations where your only available character, your only untapped character is maybe Flamewar or even Aimless, and they only have 3 attack. And against a wider list, if I'm about to get hit like 2 times or 3 times by certain decks, like Soundwave, what I might do is instead of attacking with Flamewar and doing just like a little bit of damage, I might just go ahead and EMP wave just to reset the board. It's rare, but also another huge factor is the double blue pip. The double blue pip helps you trigger the ion cannon. So we want to increase our chances of triggering that as much as possible. So 7, I think, is the right call. So we were playing 3 weapons. The reason I'm only playing 3 weapons is because when Aimless flips, I don't want to have to throw away a weapon to equip it. So essentially, these weapons are here for Aimless and Flamewar, not for Nemesis. I'm not saying I don't ever put them on Nemesis if I really need the extra power early game, but for the most part, that's kind of, they're there, so whenever Aimless dies, he can equip to Nemesis. So I want to talk about the MVP card in the deck. Escape Route is easily the best card in the deck, just because it's fetchable, it's a white pip, and it allows you to just spam Nemesis flip ability, which I think a lot of people undervalue just how strong it is. There was a lot of games I played last night where flipping Nemesis constantly was just kind of overwhelming for my opponent. They were having just to put damage in places they didn't want to, and it was just, I think, super strong, and there's just a ton of different ways. And the fact that his stats basically don't change on either side, you obviously want him to stay in this mode, so whenever you flip through your cards, but if you're planning it correctly, you can still flip without the Escape Route, but Escape Route lets you do it safely. You don't have to worry about missing a card under him, all that good stuff. So now we're going to look at the sideboard. Looks like I didn't get out Acid Storm. Hold on. So my sideboard character was Acid Storm. I brought him in once last night, and we'll go through it when I get to the battle report. He's great. He does one thing. He turns off bold. But I'll kind of talk about him in a second. So moving on. Thermal Weaponry. I would bring this in against other blue decks. So essentially, just decks I needed more consistent pierce numbers against. I hated playing the orange pit, but Thermal Weaponry is good. I like it a little bit more than Cutlass just because I can play it on Nemesis as well. And yeah, so I'm running 3 of those. Infiltrate. Infiltrate was probably my sideboard all-star for this event, just because against orange matchups, just catching their actions and deleting them basically. It feels fantastic because most of the time they just assume it's a battlefield report because that's what they saw game 1, and now you can just, and they're just running their they run their treasure hunt straight into it. Well, yeah, so probably the most underwhelming card in the sideboard was Take Cover. I just never really played against anything that was throwing a lot of indirect damage at me, so it was kind of whatever. And I'm also playing 2 Laser Cutlasses in the sideboard. That is for decks like Bugs, who do play, if they're playing Ransack at least, have a few characters that have 3 armor, or 2 armor, and I actually want Aimless and Flamewar to do a little bit more work. But I don't typically bring it in against the blue lists. Sometimes I don't think I boarded it in against anything else other than Bugs. So we'll kind of go over that in a second as well. So that's the deck. I love this deck. It's probably my favorite Wave 3 deck at the moment. All right, so now I'm just going to kind of go over how the tournament. All right, so now for the tournament report. So round 1, I played against Joe, and he was playing 4-wide Bugs with Ransack, Chop Shop in the sideboard. Pretty much what you expect from a Bugs list. Lots of orange, 3 eye still functions. You know, pretty much, you know, Wave 2 Bugs. Now, much like last format, what we learned is that Wave 2 Bugs has a pretty big issue with Tough. It slows the deck down tremendously, and that was still very true this game. There was one game where I had a Bravery and I think Reinforced Plating on Aimless, and he just could not get through. And Optimus Prime Nemesis Prime, just kind of like put in the work. He just like did a whole lot of damage, but honestly, like flipping Nemesis, like was able to kind of like wheedle through a lot of his list so that my smaller characters could actually make an impact in fighting. So game 2, so I got game 1 pretty, I wouldn't say it was super easy. It was a long game, as longest games I think I've ever played against Bugs. Lots of decision making and stuff. So game 2, I boarded in Infiltrate. He burned through his hand pretty early, which is about what you expect with Bugs. He went to Treasure Hunt. I flipped Infiltrate. It kind of threw him off gas the whole game, so he was kind of sitting there while I built up a fortress, and Nemesis just kind of wailed on him until the game was over. I think I got Nemesis up to 19 that game. It was pretty awesome, honestly. So going forward, so game 2, I played against Jason, who was playing Alpha Prime, which is a deck I'm pretty familiar with. I played a lot of it when Wave 3 first dropped, and you know, great action economy. So he was constantly swinging huge numbers, but luckily my tough was kind of able to take it down to much more manageable numbers. Here, I think the big advantage is I was 3 wide and he was 2 wide, which gave me a lot of tools for handling that. So I got game 1. I was sweating a little bit there at the beginning, but as the game progressed, once I knocked out Alpha Trion, the game kind of felt a lot easier because I still had 3 characters and he had 1. So it got a little better. So I took game 1, and then game 2 in the sideboard I brought in my thermal weaponries. And thermal weaponry just ended up really letting me ignore him basically and just do as much damage as I could. Escape route was super strong in this game as well, just because he had 2 characters, so he was only choosing between 2 different characters as to who he wants to put the damage on. So it's not like when I was flipping against Bugs could, kind of just throw the damage, on Ransack and, not really care. Because that deck has a lot of really solid armor. Now, Alpha Prime has good armor as well, but ultimately, having more swings, I just kind of got ahead of him. And once Aimless did die and he equipped a Nemesis, I hit all my procs, so it was over from there. So round 3, this was we only had 7 players, so we ended up only having 3 rounds of Swiss. All right, and finally, game 3 I played against, or not game 3, round 3, I played against my testing mate Robert, who was playing a very hyper-aggressive cards list. It was Prowl, Wheeljack, and Legendary Bee. So the thing about Legendary Bee, I think in Wave 3, is he has so much more late game, but it gives that deck so much more late game potential, which I think is it makes it a little stronger in Wave 3. Just because a lot of games are trying to go to that late game. And so we did a lot of back and forth. Aimless soaked a lot of hits like he does. I never managed to land a Bravery, unfortunately, in game 1. So Aimless went down, equipped a Prime. It ended up being Nemesis versus Legendary Bee. Legendary Bee was huge. Nemesis was really big. I swung with Nemesis with the Ion Cannon. I missed the proc by 1 and ended up leaving Bee at 3 health, which would have been perfect math had it actually went off. So unfortunately, I lost game 1, and then game 2 we both sideboarded. I boarded in Acid Storm, Infiltrate, and I think I even boarded in the Cutlasses just because late game B does have all that armor, and I just needed to get in as plus he boarded in Warpath. So we were both turning each other's main function of our decks off. So the early game was literally us just kind of trying to get in for as much as he could, but I kind of felt like orange is a little better without its keyword than blue is. So because he had lots of cards that kind of pumped him, so he ended up hitting me really hard in the early game. I was unable to protect Flamewar. Aimless kind of went down later. So it ended up yet again with Nemesis Prime wearing the Ion Cannon, looking down a Legendary Bee. I swung, put him at 1 health. Yet again, I missed my trigger a second time because I didn't have Flame War to give him that bold. So I swung, I missed my trigger, left Bumblebee at 1. His turn, he top decked the I Still Function, and then he hit me with Wheeljack and Bumblebee, and Nemesis Prime went down. So I O2'd in that round. So I ended up going 2-1 for the event. Super great event. Had a great time playing with everybody. Lots of cool decks. I know my friend Justin played tanks. We had a guy named Jake there who was playing Ultra Magnus Optimus Prime, or General Optimus. And we had my friend Mike playing Grimlock RC Lionizer. He did not do nearly as well as I anticipated. He ended up kind of like missing a lot of really important draws. He just never got the cards he needed in hand, which, sometimes that happens. But we're already looking at scheduling our next event. Hopefully I'll have more information about that soon. So if you're in the Carolinas or nearby, Georgia, Northern Florida, whatever, just make sure you join the Carolina Transformers group. We post all kinds of events in our area there. So thanks.